Hello everyone and welcome to Silicon Sounds, audio for the rest of us. Today I have the distinct pleasure of reviewing the BGVP DMA. I'd like to title this review as Defying Sonic Expectations. BGVP is a well-known company in the IEM space who have a long track record of releasing high-quality products. Two of the things that set BGVP apart from my experience with them, having listened to a number of their IEMs before, from most of the competition, are their focus on using quality components, and secondly, their pricing strategy, which, considering the use of more costly parts, is usually reasonably priced, to be honest with you. BGVP is not shy about saying what balanced armatures they're using, what kind of bone conductors, where they're sourced from. That sets them apart. And considering the use of these more expensive, you would have to believe, components, yet keeping their prices reasonable, relatively speaking, is something that I admire. They've also shown impressive engineering prowess at getting the best out of their designs, which at times are surprisingly elaborate. The internal structures, independent cavities, and so on and so on. BGVP seems to be one of those, they're not the only, but one of the rare companies out there that really are doing it from top to bottom. The DMA is not a new IEM. It's been around for probably a year, maybe more, but one that for many has flown under the radar. This is a shame. Being that at its asking price, which is just under $300 USD, it's a fabulous performer, besting a number of higher-priced IEMs I've heard in recent times. They say old is gold. Driver complement includes a single 9.2 millimeter nickel vibration film dynamic driver. It's a nickel film that's been pounded to the thinness of being able to be a dynamic driver or used as a material. They use a Sonion, there they go, saying exactly where they source their parts, a Sonion 2300 series balance armature. Another armature is the single Knowles RAD series, RAD series balance armature, and two Sonion bone conductor drivers. Once again, BGVP is not afraid to mention and to use higher quality components. They use three separate isolated acoustic ducts in the front cavity to minimize inter-driver interference, as well the bone conductor shock hole, as it's called, in the rear cavity is shaped and engineered to extract the best performance out of these type of drivers. Once again, BGVP is seen paying attention to the details when it comes to engineering. It's just not about slapping a bunch of drivers into a shell and using damping materials in the nozzle to tune. They're really doing a lot. Tuning-wise, the DMA offers an energetic yet wonderfully articulate sound, just touching on a bright neutral signature. I just said just touching because it's not completely bright neutral. The very capable bass does offer a good balance with the treble, making for a more linear sound than an overly top-heavy one. So the bass does compensate. Easy to drive. The DMA is a resolving IEM and benefits from a more capable source. Please put this on a more capable source, folks. It really deserves it. Tip selection is also key here to get a good seal and comfortable for long-term wearing, because these are really suited sonically for long listening sessions. It has a wide bore, short stem, and getting tips on here could be a challenge for some. But what I use for auditioning this one, the DMA, was to use wide bore, short stem tips. It worked very well, but your mileage may vary. I do recommend, though, that you pair this with a warmer source to offer the best synergy. Specs: dynamic driver, it's one 9.2 millimeter dynamic driver, two balanced armatures, and two bone conductor drivers per shell. So, more about the specs: impedance is 17 ohms and sensitivity 108 dB. The cable, as I'll show you soon, is a 6N single crystal copper silver plated cable, and the connector, unusually so, is MMCX. We don't see that much anymore. Usually we see the 2-pin. There are some advantages. I'm going to hear a lot of crying about MMCX if made to a high standard and correctly, particularly for rotating and for comfort in your ear. Not everybody's auricle or their ear is built the same way, folks. But the connector has to be of very high quality. Let's talk about the sound. Bass. The low end immediately comes off as tight, snappy, with good drive and pacing. I was listening to Angel by Massive Attack. The power of the low end was evident with the bonus of the good texturing heard. And detail, retrieval in the bass is quite good. Moving on to In Passing by the Robert Glasper Trio. The double bass I was concentrating on here was distinct and detailed with a notable natural tone. Poem of a Chinese Drum by Hock Man Yim is a track with powerful drum strikes, and the DMA did very well. The impacts were forceful, and the reverberation of the drum skins was not only clearly obvious, but natural as well. Likewise, on Promised Land by Dennis Brown, the bass line and drums sounded full with great snap. The DMA has a bass that not only serves as a solid foundation, but also does so in a fashion that is both articulate and musical. Very well done. Mid-range. The mid-range has an open and lively nature with good weight, particularly in the lower mids. Male vocals sound wonderful on the DMA. Not to say that female vocals don't. They do. They sound really clear, even, really nice. Detail retrieval is good and has a good balance between macro and micro. Pin gain is kept very reasonable, adding a little bit of detail, but limiting any potential for harshness, and there was none heard. Harshness is absent. Layering and separation are also notable, with even playback of hyper-busy tracks such as Beautiful Lie by Vic Lavender remaining composed. Transients have a sharp attack with natural fall-off, and the dynamic passages were handled with ease. While the above description, and let me give you a little bit closer look, the translucent part of the shell we can see inside, very, very nice, and all the workings, very intricately made. Yeah, so while the above description may sound similar in several other IEMs, what sets apart the DMA is how the sound components come together in an eminently musical way. I can imagine tuning, manufacturing, using the components you use and getting the best out of them. Those are all individual things. So the whole is greater than the sum of the parts here. And while many IEMs seem to be able to produce decent sound, not many of them can pull a listener in like the DMA can. And that's because just the balance between all the different metrics and the different elements is just done right. I would say that the BGVP with the DMA have fashioned a mid-range that allows a listener to get lost in the music. No one element overshadows another. The integration of sound is something special. So while many have a clear and open mid-range, many have that balance, that warmth, touch of warmth, pin gain under control. There's only a few that actually can pull a listener in. Everything has to be in certain quantities, and the DMA has it. Before I forget, I will show you the cable. Now, the cable is what I like to call convertible. The tips can be changed out. This is the 4.4 millimeter balance, can be changed for a 3.5 millimeter SE. It is a convertible tip. I got with the 4.4 millimeter balance only because that's what I use. And as I mentioned before, the connectors are MMCX, if you can see it. Let me just make it clear. MMCX connectors. So that's the cable. Haptics are very good. It's supple, just firm enough, but supple, and really is not prone to getting tangled. Just before I move on, the case is your typical BGVP. This one is white. It's so big the camera can't catch it all. Open it up. It's got a lot of space. And I don't know if you could see it on camera, but it's embossed with the BGVP right here. So let's continue with the star of the show, shall we? And move on to the treble. The DMA produces some high-quality treble. It is extended with ample quantities of sparkle and air combined with admirable detail retrieval. Those who are treble sensitive may have minor complaints, as there is a lot of energy here, but to these opinionated ears, what was heard was crisp and natural treble playback with a good smattering of organics. The treble here is really adds to the openness of the sound, really opening up that landscape, much like the bass does in a different way when it comes to soundstage, for example. And let's talk about imaging and soundstage. Well, here we go. With imaging and soundstage, a moderate-sized soundstage is what the DMA projects with rock-solid, precise imaging within those confines. The DMA, like better IEMs I have heard recently and in the past, don't try to wow the listener with hyper-stretched dimensions. For example, awesome width, but height and depth really don't match. Again, it's a balance of metrics, a balance of acoustic elements that really will pull a listener in. And this is what the DMA does so well, and others as well. They opt for a more balanced approach, which just sounds more natural. This enhances the listener's ability to escape into the music rather than being distracted. Let's talk about some verses. Now, I just reviewed and had at the same time the EPZ K9. Now, the K9 is approximately $100 more expensive than the DMA, but let's go through the comparison. The K9 is more expensive, but when does price actually directly correlate with performance? Based on the DMA has better detailing and slightly more power when called for. But in other metrics, they're very close. So the DMA, if you want that little extra detail in the bass, a little bit faster bass, more snap, this is the one to go for. The K9 does very well, by the way, and let's just leave it there. Mid-range is closer, though, both sounding open and unrestrained. I prefer the DMA with its lower pinna gain emphasis. Now, I want to qualify that. The K9 does not have excessive pinna gain. Again, I want to say it again. The K9 from EPZ does not have excessive pinna gain. It's just that the DMA is a little bit toned down even more to a point where I really appreciate it. So the K9 was well within my tolerance of preferences for pinna gain. The K9 was somewhat warmer overall, but the DMA edged it out in terms of organics. Treble is where the DMA really opened up a bigger lead. It has a more natural playback in the upper registers, with the K9 having a noticeable glaze added. When doing direct comparisons between the two, treble busy tracks or even not, I just felt that the DMA had a sharper, cleaner treble with less glaze on it, if you were, like a little bit waxy on the K9, although both of them had an ample treble. If I had to pick one to keep alone, it would definitely be the DMA. K9's a good one, but when listening, having the opportunity to listen to both at the same time, that's my conclusion with that. And that brings us to the conclusion. BGVP, you've done it again, man. Excellent IEM with the DMA. Despite it being, at the time of this review, not a new release, it still puts many of the newer IEMs on notice, and to be quite honest with you, puts them to shame. I had to check over and over again the actual retail price. I couldn't believe how much these were priced at. I purposely did not look at the price before listening to these for the first one or two times. And during my time with it, I had to keep checking back to make sure I wasn't being fooled, and it was listed at under 300 USD. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the BGVP DMA as a fantastic IEM that is versatile, doing well with many genres of music. Easy to recommend and even easier to listen to. That is my take on the BGVP DMA. I want to thank you very much for watching the channel. For those people who have joined already, thank you so much for your support. And for those who have not, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe, and more videos coming through. I want to make a shout out to the Canuck Audioholics Anonymous Hardware Review Group, a very small but dedicated group of Canadian-based reviewers of gear. The music always comes first, the gear comes second. We just happen to be music lovers who like gear. as well. But the music speaks for itself. There's many times we have had to review items that were so good at times that we just got lost in the music. We still get lost in the music. It's hard to be critical when something sounds really good. And the DMA is a great IEM in that regard. So like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Silicon Sounds, audio for the rest of us.